The fluorescent lights of Brooklyn Community Rehab Center burned my eyes as I locked the clinic door at 11 p.m. 16 hours. That's how long I'd been on my feet, guiding Mrs. Patterson through her post-stroke exercises, helping Marcus regain mobility after his construction accident, pretending I wasn't one missed payment away from losing everything. My phone buzzed. Another voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't need to listen to know what it said. The loan sharks were getting impatient. $300,000. That's what my mother's experimental cancer treatment had cost after insurance denied coverage. The treatment that bought her 6 extra months but left me drowning in debt with 22% interest compounding daily. I pulled my thin jacket tighter against the October wind and started the walk to my apartment. The subway would be faster, but I'd cancelled my MetroCard to make this month's minimum payment. My stomach growled. Dinner had been the protein bar I'd found in my locker, expired by 3 months. That's when I saw the car. A black Mercedes S-Class, idling at the curb with its engine purring like a satisfied cat. The windows were tinted so dark, they seemed to absorb the streetlight. Everything about it screamed money and danger in equal measure. I quickened my pace, clutching my bag closer. The back door opened. Maya Chun. The voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent. We need to talk. I stopped, every instinct screaming to run. But my apartment was 6 blocks away, and I'd seen the men in cheap suits watching my building yesterday. The ones with dead eyes and patient smiles. A man stepped out. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a magazine cover, sharp jawline, straight nose, eyes so dark they looked black under the streetlights. His suit probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never been told no. I don't know you, I said, forcing my voice steady. But I know you. He gestured to the car's interior, all leather and wood trim. Physical therapist, 28 years old, graduated with honors despite working 3 jobs. Your mother died 14 months ago. The debt collector started calling 13 months ago. My blood turned cold. How do you, Maya? He said my name like he'd been saying it for years. Dante Moretti. And I'm offering you a way out. I should have run. Should have screamed. Instead, I heard myself ask, what kind of way out? I need a physical therapist. Someone skilled, discreet, and desperate enough not to ask questions. His eyes never left mine. 8 weeks of work. In return, your debt disappears. All of it. The number hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. No one. I'm not no one. He stepped aside, revealing the car's open door. The interior glowed softly, warm and inviting. Everything my life wasn't. The position as live-in. You'll have your own quarters, meals provided, and excellent working conditions. You'll treat one patient who requires intensive rehabilitation. Why can't they go to a hospital? Something flickered across his face. My family values privacy. The patient's injury was ... sensitive. We need someone who won't appear in any medical databases or insurance claims. Criminal. Every cell in my body recognized what he was carefully not saying. This man, this offer, this whole situation reeked of organized crime. I need time to think. You have 30 seconds. Dante checked his watch. Platinum and probably worth more than my mother's entire medical debt. After that, the offer expires, and you go home to face whatever's waiting for you there. As if on cue, I saw them. 2 men in those cheap suits, standing on the corner near my building. Watching. Waiting. Why me? I whispered. Dante's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because according to your former patients, you're the best. Because you don't give up on people even when they've given up on themselves. He paused. And because you have nowhere else to turn. The truth of it burned. There's one condition, Dante added, pulling something from his pocket. Black silk folded precisely. The drive requires a blindfold. For your protection and mine. You'll know where we're going, but not how to find it again. I stared at the blindfold, my last chance to walk away evaporating with each passing second. Behind me, the men in cheap suits started walking toward us. In front of me, a dangerous stranger offered salvation wrapped in silk. I got in the car. The leather seat was butter-soft beneath me, still warm from the car's heating system. I'd never been in a vehicle that cost more than my yearly salary. The door closed with a sound so perfectly engineered it was almost silent. Whispered. It didn't shout. Dante slid in beside me, too close in the confined space. I could smell his cologne now, something dark and expensive that reminded me of cedar and smoke. Your hand, please. He held out the black silk blindfold. I stared at it, my last moment of sight before willingly entering the unknown. This is insane. Probably, he agreed. His voice held a note of dark amusement. But you're still here! My fingers trembled as I took the fabric. It was cool and impossibly smooth, the kind of silk that cost more per yard than I made in a week. I'll help you. Dante's hands were gentle as he took the blindfold back, his fingers brushing my temples as he positioned it over my eyes. The world went black. Too tight? No. My other senses sharpened immediately. The leather scent, the low purr of the engine, the whisper of Dante's breathing beside me. The car began to move. I counted turns, trying to map our route. Right out of the parking spot, straight for what felt like 3 blocks. Left at what might have been Atlantic Avenue based on the traffic sounds. But after 10 minutes, I'd lost track completely. You're trying to memorize the route, Dante observed. It won't work. We're taking a deliberately complicated path. Can't blame a girl for trying. No. I heard the smile in his voice. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. We drove in silence for several minutes. I felt hyper-aware of his presence, the heat radiating from his body, the subtle shift of expensive fabric when he moved. Tell me about your mother, Dante said suddenly. My throat tightened. Why? Because I want to know who I'm working with. You mean who you're blackmailing into service? Semantics. That amused tone again. Your mother. She was a high school art teacher, yes? The specific detail made my skin prickle. You really did your homework. I always do. The car turned sharply right, I thought, but couldn't be sure anymore. She'd taught at Franklin High for 23 years. Beloved by students. Died of pancreatic cancer despite experimental treatment at Sloan Kettering. Stop! My voice cracked. The treatment gave her 6 extra months. You spent every day at her bedside when you weren't working. The hospital staff called you the daughter who never left. He paused. That kind of devotion is rare, valuable. You're talking about her like she's a line item in a file. I'm talking about her like she mattered. Dante's voice softened. Because she clearly did. To you. And that tells me what kind of person you are. I didn't respond. Couldn't. My hands clenched in my lap. You played Division I soccer at Boston University, he continued. Full scholarship. Torn ACL junior year ended your career. You switched majors from business to physical therapy because I wanted to help people get back what they'd lost. I finished bitterly. Since I couldn't get it back myself. Exactly. Something in his tone made me wish I could see his face. You understand loss, adaptation, fighting when the odds say you should quit. The car slowed, turned again. That's why you're here. Not just because you're desperate, but because you're a fighter. I don't feel like a fighter right now. I feel like I'm being driven to my own kidnapping. You're not being kidnapped, Maya. You got in the car yourself. You can ask to leave any time. And my debt remains yours. His voice went cold again, reminding me who I was dealing with. Along with the men waiting at your apartment. We drove for what felt like another 30 minutes. I tried to gauge direction by the sun's warmth through the window, but clouds had moved in. Finally, the car slowed, then stopped. The engine died. We're here! Dante's door opened and I heard him step out. Cool evening air rushed in. Then his hand found mine, warm and surprisingly gentle. 3 steps down. I've got you. I let him guide me out of the car, my feet finding stone beneath them. We walked forward. I counted 15 steps, then up. 5 stairs, each one solid granite beneath my shoes. A door opened. The temperature changed, warmer, with an echo that suggested vast space. Dante's hands lifted to the blindfold. "Welcome to my home." The silk fell away. I blinked against sudden light, my eyes adjusting to reveal a foyer that belonged in a European palace. Not New York. Marble floors in cream and gold, a double staircase curving up to a second floor. And dominating the wall above them, an oil painting of a severe man in his 60s. Dark eyes that seemed to follow you, mouth set in a line that suggested he'd never smiled in his life. Dante stood beside me now, his expression unreadable as he watched my reaction. "Is that ... I gestured to the painting. "My father, Salvatore Moretti." His jaw tightened. "He's dead now. But his legacy remains." The way he said it made legacy sound like a curse. Dante's hand pressed against the small of my back, guiding me toward the staircase. When he spoke again, his voice had turned cold, professional, every trace of gentleness evaporated. "Your patient is upstairs." Dante led me up the curved staircase, our footsteps echoing on marble. The second floor opened into a wide hallway lined with closed doors and oil paintings of stern-faced men who shared Dante's dark eyes. We stopped at the third door on the right. Dante's hand paused on the handle. "My brother can be difficult," he said quietly. 3 physical therapists have quit in 2 weeks. What happened to them? He was uncooperative. They chose to leave. Dante's eyes met mine. Despite $10,000 each for less than a week of work, my stomach dropped. People didn't walk away from that kind of money unless the situation was unbearable. Dante opened the door. The bedroom had been transformed into a medical suite with hospital-grade equipment. A fully adjustable bed dominated the center, surrounded by monitors, 4-stand, and top-of-the-line rehabilitation gear. Parallel bars stood in one corner. In the bed lay a young man who couldn't have been more than 23. Dark curly hair, pale face slick with sweat, eyes closed. The blanket outlined his left leg at an unnatural angle. "Serious injury, extensive hardware," Luca Dante said. "The therapist is here." The young man's eyes snapped open, immediately hostile. They tracked from his brother to me with swift dismissal. "Another one?" His voice was hoarse. "What is she? The 4th, third Dante corrected. "And I expect better cooperation this time." "Or what?" Luca's bitter laugh made me wince. Dante's hands clenched briefly. "I'll leave you to your assessment." He left without another word. I pulled up the tablet with Luca's chart. Comminuted femoral fracture, surgical repair, severe patellar tendon damage. 3 weeks post-op. "Maya-chan," I introduced myself. "Physical therapist. I'll be working with you for 8 weeks. Bought and paid for, just like the others." Luca's mouth twisted. "How much is my brother paying you?" "Enough that I'm here instead of letting loan sharks break my kneecaps." I met his gaze. "So let's not waste time. I need this job. You need to walk again. We can work together, or make each other miserable. Your choice." Surprise flickered in his eyes. "I'm never walking again," he said flatly. The doctors said difficult, not impossible." I moved closer. "May I examine your leg? Does it matter if I say no?" "Yes." I pulled up a chair, sitting at his level. "I won't touch you without consent." He stared at me, then slowly nodded. I pulled back the blanket. The incision was healing well, but the muscle atrophy was significant. "When was your last session?" "Yesterday. Lasted 5 minutes before I told her to get out." "Why?" "Because she looked at me like I was broken." His voice went raw, like something to pity. I looked up. "I don't pity you, Luca. I've seen worse injuries recover fully." I paused. "But I've also seen people give up because the work was too hard. The injury doesn't decide if you walk again. You do." "Dante sent you to give me a pep talk?" "Dante sent me to do a job. Whether you cooperate is your business." I stood, moving to the parallel bars. I played Division 1 soccer until I destroyed my ACL. Doctors said I'd never run competitively again. Did you? No, because I gave up. I let the injury win. I turned to face him. I'm not letting you make the same mistake. Luca's expression shifted, hostility warring with something else. Hope, maybe. You're different from the others, he said finally. Good. Maybe you'll actually listen. I picked up his chart. We start tomorrow. 6 a.m. Light range of motion exercises. Bring your attitude. I can work with that. Leave the self-pity in bed. His mouth quirked into almost a smile. You're either brave or stupid, Maya-chan. Probably both. I headed for the door, then paused. I don't run. So, whatever you're planning to make me save your energy, you'll need it for walking. In the hallway. Dante waited, arms crossed. Well, your brother's not difficult. He's terrified. There's a difference. Something cracked in Dante's expression before the mask returned. Will you be able to work with him? I thought of Luca's hostile eyes, the pain beneath the bravado. Yes, but I need you to stay out of my sessions unless I ask. He doesn't need his brother watching. Dante studied me, then nodded. Your quarters are 2 doors down. Dinner is at 7. As he turned to leave, I called after him. Dante? What really happened to him? He paused, not looking back. Training accident. That's all you need to know. But the way he said it, cold, final, furious, told me everything. This was no accident. And Dante was going to make them pay. My quarters turned out to be a suite larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens lit by subtle landscape lighting. A king-size bed with sheets that looked like they cost more than my monthly rent. An in-suite bathroom with marble everything and a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. And a lock on the inside of the door. For your comfort, Dante said, watching me notice it. No one enters without your permission. I ran my finger over the brass deadbolt. How thoughtful. A gilded cage with privacy. You're not a prisoner, Maya. Then I can leave whenever I want. His expression didn't change. We should discuss the terms of your employment. Of course. I moved to the window, putting distance between us. The gardens stretched into darkness, and beyond them I could just make out a stone wall. High, topped with something that glinted in the moonlight. Razor wire, probably. You'll work with Luca 6 hours a day, Dante began, his voice shifting into business mode. Morning and afternoon sessions, with breaks as needed. I want detailed progress reports weekly. Standard protocol. I kept my back to him, watching his reflection in the glass. He stood perfectly still, hands in his pockets, watching me. Meals are taken with the family. Breakfast at 7, dinner at 7. Lunch is flexible. He paused. My sister Gianna joins us most evenings. She'll want to meet you. How many people live here? Permanently? Just the 3 of us. My father's house. His jaw tightened at the mention. Staff come and go. Security rotates shifts. You'll learn who's who. I turned to face him. And the boundaries? East wing only. Luca's room, your quarters, the library, small dining room, and the physical therapy equipment room downstairs. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. The west wing is private. My office, personal quarters, off limits. What about outside? The gardens during daylight hours. Always with security present. His eyes held mine. For your safety, or to make sure I don't run. Both. Alicia's honest. No phone calls without supervision, no internet access from your personal devices. No contact with anyone outside this property. The walls closed in a little tighter. For how long? 8 weeks. If Luca shows measurable progress by then, your debt is cleared in full. You walk away free. I laughed, the sound bitter. Free. That's generous. It's more than you had this morning. Dante stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. This morning, you were 6 blocks from men who would have broken more than your kneecaps to send a message. And now I'm trapped in a mansion with a man who won't tell me what family business means. I lifted my chin. How is this better? Because I keep my promises. His voice dropped, dangerous and soft. Work with Luca. Show progress. In 8 weeks, you leave with nothing hanging over you. No debt. No threats. No looking over your shoulder. What if I want to leave before then? Dante's expression turned cold. Then you leave with nothing. The debt remains yours. And those loan sharks? He tilted his head slightly. I'll inform them you're no longer under my protection. They'll be very interested to know where to find you. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's not protection. That's extortion. It's reality. He reached past me, his arm brushing mine as he opened the window. Cool October air rushed in. You made a choice tonight, Maya. Getting in that car, putting on the blindfold, walking into this house. His eyes met mine, unreadable. Now you live with the consequences. You manipulated me. You knew I had no real choice. There's always a choice. His voice softened slightly. You could have gone to the police, filed for bankruptcy, asked family for help. I don't have family, and bankruptcy doesn't erase private loans from people who don't care about legal proceedings. Exactly. Dante stepped back. So stop pretending you're a victim here. You're a survivor who made a calculated decision. Own it. The words stung because they were true. I had chosen this. Chosen the devil I didn't know over the devils waiting at my apartment. What happened to the other therapists? I asked quietly. The real reason they left. Dante moved to the door, his hand on the handle. They couldn't handle the questions they weren't allowed to ask, the things they weren't allowed to see. He looked back at me. Luca's injury wasn't an accident. It was a message to me. And the people who sent that message are still out there. Ice slid down my spine. You're saying I'm in danger. I'm saying you're under my protection, which means you're safer here than anywhere else. His expression hardened. But only if you follow the rules. Stay in the East Wing. Don't ask questions about business. And never ever try to leave without telling me first, or what? Or the people watching you won't be my men. He opened the door. Elena left dinner on the desk. Eat, rest. Tomorrow you start earning your freedom. He left, the door closing with that perfect, expensive silence. I stood there, staring at the lock on the inside of the door. My choice, he'd said. My decision. But as I turned the deadbolt, sealing myself inside this beautiful prison, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made a deal with someone far more dangerous than any loan shark. And unlike debt, some deals couldn't be paid off in 8 weeks. Some deals lasted a lifetime. The first week with Luca was a war of attrition. He fought me on everything. Range of motion exercises that should have taken 20 minutes stretched to an hour because he'd stopped mid-movement, claiming the pain was too much. Ice therapy became a negotiation. The parallel bars might as well have been Mount Everest for all his willingness to approach them. I'm done for today, he'd announce after 15 minutes. His jaw set in that stubborn line that reminded me too much of his brother. We have 5 hours and 45 minutes left in our session, I'd reply calmly, pulling up a chair. So we can sit here in silence, or you can do 3 more reps. By day 4, he'd stopped testing me quite so obviously. By day 7, he managed 30 minutes of actual work before the attitude kicked in. Progress. Microscopic, but there. I fell into a routine. 6 a.m. sessions with Luca. Breakfast with the family where Gianna, Dante's 25-year-old sister, peppered me with questions, while Dante watched in silent assessment. Then afternoon sessions, dinner, and nights alone in my luxurious prison. Dante kept his distance during therapy sessions, true to his word, but I felt his presence like a weight. Sometimes I'd catch him in the hallway when I left Luca's room. Other times I'd glance up from demonstrating an exercise to find him in the doorway, those dark eyes tracking my every movement before he disappeared without a word. It was the beginning of the 2nd week when everything changed. I'd finished the evening session early, Luca had actually cooperated, completing his exercises without the usual fight, and headed to my room. But passing his door at midnight, I heard something. A thud. A muffled curse. I pushed open the door without thinking. Luca was on the floor beside his bed, one hand gripping the mattress, the other clutching his thigh. His face was pale, sheened with sweat, twisted in pain and humiliation. "Don't," he bit out as I moved toward him. "Just don't." But I was already kneeling beside him, checking his leg for damage. No fresh swelling, no signs of re-injury. Just a young man who'd tried to stand on his own and failed. "How long have you been down here?" I asked quietly. 10 minutes, maybe 15. His voice cracked. I thought I could do it. I thought if I just pushed through the pain. The weakness. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I used to run 5 miles every morning. Box, train, keep up with Dante's men, even though I was younger, smaller. Now I can't even stand up to piss without help. I sat back on my heels, studying him. Not as a patient, but as someone who'd been exactly where he was. "I was 18 when I tore my ACL," I said. "Full scholarship to Boo, Olympic development program watching me. My entire identity was soccer player. That's all I was." Luca's eyes flicked to mine. Surgery went perfectly. Recovery should have been textbook. I pulled my knees to my chest, matching his position on the floor. But 6 months in, I still couldn't cut right without my knee giving out. Physical therapist said I needed to push harder. Coach said I was babying it. My mother, I swallowed. She said I could do anything if I wanted it badly enough. What happened? I quit. The admission still tasted like failure. Gave up my scholarship, switched majors, convinced myself I was being realistic, practical. I looked at him. But the truth is, I was terrified. Terrified that if I pushed and still failed, it would mean I wasn't strong enough, wasn't good enough. So I never found out what I could have been. Luca was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're not weak, Luca. Your body was broken by someone else. That's not weakness. That's survival. But giving up now," I held his gaze, "that would be the weak choice. I don't know if I can do this." His voice was barely a whisper. "You don't have to know. You just have to try." I stood, then offered my hand. One step at a time. Literally. He stared at my hand like it was a lifeline and a trap all at once. Then slowly, he took it. Together we got him standing. His left leg trembled, barely holding his weight. But he was up. "Now what?" he panted. "Now we get you back to bed before your brother finds us and thinks I'm killing you." I helped him sit on the mattress. "And tomorrow, we try again. And again. Until standing doesn't feel impossible." Something shifted in his expression. Not hope exactly, but the absence of that crushing despair. "Maya?" he said as I turned to leave.
Thank you.
I paused at the door. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow I'm making you use the parallel bars." His laugh followed me into the hallway, the first genuine sound of joy I'd heard from him. And there, leaning against the wall in the shadows, was Dante. His eyes met mine, intense and unreadable. But his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, just the suggestion of one. "You're good with him," he said quietly. "I'm doing my job." "No." He pushed off the wall, moving closer. "You're doing more than that. You're giving him something I couldn't."
What's that?
"Someone who believes in him without making it about family obligation." Dante stopped a foot away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "You care about him, after barely a week. Is that a problem? It's unexpected." His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up. "You're unexpected, Maya-chan." The air between us felt charged, dangerous. I should have stepped back, put distance between myself and this man who held all the power. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "So are you, Dante Moretti." Something flared in his eyes. Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness of the West Wing, leaving me standing there, heart racing, realizing that Luca wasn't the only Moretti brother I was starting to care about. And that terrified me more than any debt ever could. 2 weeks in, Luca took his first independent steps on the parallel bars. 3 steps. Shaky, painful, his knuckles white with effort. But he did it without me supporting his weight, without Dante hovering anxiously by the door. When he finished, collapsing back into the wheelchair with a triumphant gasp, even I had to blink back tears. "Don't get emotional on me, Chan," he panted, grinning. "I still can't make it to the bathroom alone." "Give it another week," I said, my voice thick. "You're ahead of schedule." That night, Dante appeared at my door before dinner. He wore a different suit, navy instead of charcoal, and held a small box. "What's this?" I asked, eyeing it suspiciously. "Thank you for what you've done with Luca." He handed it to me. "Gianna insists you can't keep wearing the same 3 outfits to dinner." Inside was a dress. Simple, elegant, deep green silk that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. "I can't accept this." "You already have." He turned to leave, then paused. "Are it tonight? We're celebrating Luca's progress." The dress fit perfectly, of course. It made my skin glow, turned my eyes almost emerald. I stared at my reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Dinner was different that night. Gianna had outdone herself, filling the table with Luca's favorite foods. He sat at the table instead of eating in his room, his wheelchair pulled close, color in his cheeks for the first time since I'd arrived. To Maya, Gianna raised her wine glass, her smile genuine. "For giving us our brother back." "To Maya," Luca echoed, his eyes warm. Dante said nothing, just raised his glass, his gaze holding mine across the table. The weight of it made my breath catch. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easier than it ever had. Gianna told embarrassing childhood stories. Luca argued good-naturedly with his sister. And through it all, I felt Dante watching me. Something shifting in the dynamic between us. After dinner, as Gianna helped Luca back to his room, Dante touched my elbow. "Walk with me," he said quietly. "Please." He led me to a study I'd never seen before, the West Wing, his private domain. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, and windows overlooking the city lights in the distance. "Whiskey?" He moved to a bar cart without waiting for my answer, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Is this where you conduct your business?" I asked, accepting the glass. "Sometimes." He gestured to the leather sofa by the window. "Other times I'd just sit and think." We sat, not quite touching, the silence surprisingly comfortable. "Tell me about your father," I said. "The man in the painting." Dante's expression hardened. "Why?" "Because Luca mentioned him yesterday. Said you've been trying to live up to his legacy since you were 16. I sipped the whiskey, letting it burn. That's when he died, wasn't it? You ask a lot of questions for someone who was told not to. You brought me to your private study and gave me expensive whiskey." "Mixed signals, Mr. Moretti." His mouth quirked. "Dante. When we're alone, it's Dante." The intimacy of it sent warmth through me that had nothing to do with the alcohol. "My father built an empire," he said finally, staring into his glass. "Legitimate businesses on the surface, other operations underneath. When he died, killed by a rival family, I inherited everything. At 16. That's too young. Age doesn't matter in my world. Strength does. Ruthlessness." His jaw tightened. "I've spent 12 years proving I'm my father's son. Building on what he created. Protecting what's mine. Including Luca. Especially Luca." Something dark crossed his features. "He wanted out. Wanted to go to college. Have a normal life. I told him he could, after his training was complete." "The accident," I whispered. "It wasn't training, was it?" "No." Dante set down his glass. "The Valentino family wanted to send me a message. They ambushed him on his way home from the gym, shattered his leg with a pipe while their boss watched. Horror crawled up my spine. Why? Because they're expanding into my territory. Because they think I'm stretched too thin to retaliate." His eyes met mine, cold and deadly. They were wrong. Before I could respond, his hand brushed mine on the armrest. Neither of us pulled away. "You should be afraid of me," he said quietly. of what I am, what I do. I know. My heart hammered. Should be. But you're not. No. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I'm not. Dante leaned closer, his free hand coming up to cut my face. This wasn't supposed to happen, Maya. You were supposed to fix my brother and leave. I wasn't supposed to. The windows exploded. Glass shattered inward as gunfire erupted, bullets tearing through the room. Dante's body slammed into mine, taking me to the floor as the whiskey glasses shattered above us. His weight covered me completely, one arm wrapped around my head, the other reaching for something at his back. A gun. More shots. Shouting. The sound of men running. Stay down, Dante commanded, his voice ice cold. Then he was up, returning fire with deadly precision. I pressed myself against the floor, hands over my ears, watching in frozen horror as Dante moved through his study like a trained soldier, each shot deliberate, each movement controlled. This was who he really was, not the man who brought his sister flowers. Not the brother who sat vigil by Luca's bed. This was Dante Moretti. And he was terrifying. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started. Dante crossed back to me in 3 strides, hauling me to my feet with one hand while the other kept his gun trained on the shattered windows. Blood streaked his temple from a glass cut. You're hurt, I said, reaching for his face. He caught my wrist. It's nothing. We need to move. Now. He pulled me toward a bookshelf, pressing something hidden in the carved wood. The entire section swung inward, revealing a steel door. Panic room, he explained tersely, punching a code into the keypad. Inside. The door opened to a small reinforced space monitors showing security feeds, a weapons cabinet, medical supplies, communication equipment. Dante pushed me inside and turned to leave. Wait, where are you going? To handle this. His voice was cold, emotionless. The man who'd almost kissed me minutes ago had vanished completely. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Marco. Dante, lock the door. He was already moving. I slammed the steel door shut, my hands shaking as I engaged the locks. Through the monitors, I watched chaos unfold. Men in tactical gear swarmed the grounds, Dante's security team engaging intruders in a firefight. That looked like something from a war zone, not a movie. Real bullets. Real blood. On one screen, I saw Gianna crouched in a hallway, a guard shielding her. Another showed Luca's room empty, thank God. He must have been evacuated. And there was Dante moving through the mansion with lethal efficiency. 3 men went down before they even saw him coming. I should have been horrified. Should have been planning my escape the second this was over. Instead, I inventoried the medical supplies in the panic room, my training kicking in automatically. Bandages, antibiotics, surgical tools, preparing for the aftermath. 20 minutes felt like hours. Finally, the shooting stopped. The monitors showed bodies, some moving, some not. Dante's men securing the perimeter, checking the wounded. A knock on the steel door made me jump. Maya. Dante's voice, rough but controlled. It's over. Open the door. I disabled the locks with trembling fingers. The door swung open to reveal Dante, his suit jacket discarded, blood splattered across his white shirt. Not all of it. From the cut on his temple. Behind him, 3 of his men leaned against the wall. One clutched his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Another had a gash across his ribs. They need medical attention, Dante said. Can you? I was already moving past him, grabbing the medical kit. Get them into the light. I need to see what I'm working with. For the next hour, I worked with steady hands, cleaning wounds, removing bullets, stitching gashes. The men watched me with a mixture of surprise and respect, submitting to my care without complaint. Dante stood in the corner the entire time, arms crossed, his dark eyes tracking my every movement. When I finished with the last man, I turned to Dante. Your turn. Sit. It's just a scratch. Sit down, Dante, or I'll make you. Something almost like amusement flickered across his face. He sat. I cleaned the glass cut on his temple, my fingers gentle on his skin. Up close, I could see the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion in his eyes. Who were they? I asked quietly. Valentino family. 8 men. His voice was flat. They won't be a problem anymore. The implication hung between us. I should have pressed for details, should have demanded to know if he'd killed them all. Instead, I applied butterfly bandages to the cut. You saved my life. I put it in danger by bringing you here. His hand caught mine, stopping my work. This is my world, Maya. Violence. Blood. Enemies who won't stop until we're all dead. His eyes bore into mine. You need to leave. Tomorrow. I'll arrange transport, new identity, money. Somewhere the Valentinos can't find you. What about Luca? I'll find another therapist. One who'll quit in a week? I pulled my hand free, anger rising. One who doesn't give a damn if he walks again. One who won't die because of proximity to me. I'm not leaving. The words came out fierce, surprising us both. Dante stood abruptly, towering over me. You don't understand what you're saying. Those men came here to kill my family. They failed tonight, but they'll try again. And next time, I'll be in the panic room like you told me. I stepped closer, refusing to back down, or helping with the wounded, or doing whatever needs to be done. But I'm not abandoning Luca in the middle of treatment. This isn't about Luca. You're right. My voice dropped. It's not. The air between us crackled with tension. Dante's control was fracturing, something raw and desperate breaking through. Maya, he said hoarsely. If something happened to you because of me, I reached up, cupping his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. Nothing happened to me. You made sure of that. His hand covered mine, his eyes closing briefly. You should hate me. Fear me. I know. I stood on my toes, bringing my face closer to his. But I don't. Dante's eyes opened, dark and turbulent. Why? Because I see who you are when you think no one's watching. The man who sits with his brother at 3 a.m., who lets his sister tease him at dinner, who offered me freedom even when it would have been easier to keep me trapped. I'm not a good man, Maya. No, I agreed. But you're my man. The words hung between us, a claim I had no right to make. Dante's control shattered. He kissed me like a drowning man finding air, desperate, consuming, his hands tangling in my hair. I kissed him back just as fiercely, tasting blood and whiskey and something that felt dangerously like home. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This is insane, he whispered. I know. You're supposed to leave in 6 weeks. I know. I can't let you go. My heart stopped. Then don't. Dante pulled back, searching my face. You understand what that means? Staying here? Staying with me. I understand the danger, the violence, the life I live. I understand, Dante. I held his gaze steadily. And I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. Something broke open in his expression, relief and possession, and something that looked almost like love. Then you're mine, he said roughly, and I protect what's mine. He kissed me again, softer this time, but no less claiming. And I kissed him back, knowing I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. The debt had brought me here. But something else entirely was making me stay. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. Not my room. Dante's bed in his private quarters. I was still wearing the green dress, now rumpled and stained with blood that wasn't mine. Dante sat in a chair by the window, watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. He'd changed into fresh clothes, but exhaustion lined his face. How long was I asleep? I asked, sitting up. 4 hours. He stood, moving to the bed. You passed out after treating the last man. He carried you here. The memory came back, finishing the stitches, then sudden overwhelming fatigue. I should check on them, make sure there's no infection. Marco's watching them. Dante sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch. We need to talk about last night. My stomach tightened. Which part? The attack or the kiss? Both. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. The Valentino family won't stop. Last night was a warning. Next time will be worse. You said I was under your protection. You are. But protection has limits. His jaw tightened. I've arranged for you to leave. New identity. Apartment in Seattle. $50,000 to start over. Your debt is cleared regardless. The offer should have been tempting. Safety, freedom, a fresh start far from violence and danger. Instead, it felt like a door slamming shut on something I'd just begun to want. What about Luca? I asked quietly. He's walking short distances now. Another therapist can finish his treatment. What about Gianna? Your men who trust me to patch them up. Dante's eyes searched mine. What about you, Maya? What do you want? I thought about my empty apartment in Brooklyn, the life I'd been living before the black Mercedes appeared. Working myself to exhaustion, drowning in debt, alone except for patients who forgot my name the moment they left. Then I thought about the past 2 weeks. Luca's first independent steps. Gianna's laughter at dinner. The weight of Dante's gaze across the table. The way he'd covered my body with his when bullets flew. I want to stay, I said. Not because of the debt or the threats. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I matter. Like I'm part of something. You matter. Dante's voice was rough. Too much. Is that a problem? It's terrifying. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. I've spent 12 years building walls, Maya. Keeping everyone at a distance except Luca and Gianna. It's safer that way. Cleaner. And now you're here, breaking through every defense I have. His forehead touched mine. I told myself it was just attraction, that once you left, I'd forget you. My heart hammered. And now? No, I know I was lying to myself. His eyes met mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. I'm falling for you, Maya-chan, and it's the most dangerous thing I've ever done. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. I'm falling for you too, I whispered, even though you're a criminal. Even though you scare me sometimes. Even though this is insane. Dante kissed me then, slow and deep, like sealing a pact. When we broke apart, his expression had shifted, determined, possessive. If you stay, there are conditions. Of course there are. I couldn't help but smile. You move into the West Wing, my quarters. His hand slid to the back of my neck. Where I can protect you properly. That's not a condition. That's a demand. You learn basic self-defense. Carry a panic button. Follow Marco's security protocols without argument. Agreed. And you accept that I will do whatever necessary to keep you safe. His voice turned hard. Even if that means things you won't like. Things you might hate me for. I understood what he wasn't saying. The violence would continue. The bodies would pile up. And I'd have to live with knowing the man I was falling for had blood on his hands. I accept, I said quietly. All of it. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. Then you're mine, Maya. Completely. And you're mine, I countered, surprising him. Which means no more pushing me away when things get dangerous. No more trying to send me to Seattle for my own good. We face this together. Dante studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. A small smile tugging at his lips. Together. A knock interrupted the moment. Marco's voice came through the door. Boss, we have a situation. Dante's expression hardened instantly. What kind of situation? The Valentinos took someone. They're demanding a trade. My blood ran cold. Who? Marco hesitated. Alina, the housekeeper. They grabbed her this morning on her way to visit her daughter. I thought of the kind woman who'd shown me to the dining room my first night, who always left fresh flowers in my room. Dante was already moving, his face a mask of cold fury. Gather the men. I want options in 10 minutes. Dante, I called after him. Let me help. He turned, conflict clear in his eyes. Maya, she's family too, I said firmly. You've said I'm part of this now, so let me be part of it. For a moment I thought he'd refuse, then he nodded curtly. Get changed. Where's something you can move in? His eyes held mine. And stay close to Marco. Always. As I rushed to find clothes, my hands shaking with adrenaline, I realized the choice I'd made wasn't just about staying with Dante, it was about becoming part of his world completely. Violence, danger, and all. The war room in Dante's West Wing looked exactly like what it was, a command center for criminal operations. Maps on screens, weapons laid out on tables, a dozen hard-faced men waiting for orders. I stood in the corner with Marco, trying to stay out of the way while Dante coordinated the rescue. They're holding her in a warehouse in Red Hook, one of his lieutenants reported. Security cameras show 6 men, possibly more inside. It's a trap, Dante said flatly. They want me to come charging in, so we don't. Marco leaned over the map. We go in from 3 sides. Create chaos, extract Elena during the confusion, and if they kill her the moment we breach. Silence fell over the room. They won't. Everyone turned to look at me. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. They took her to draw you out. She's only valuable alive. Dante's eyes met mine. Go on. But she's also leverage. They'll hurt her just enough to make you desperate. I moved to the table, studying the warehouse layout, which means she'd need immediate medical attention. Let me come with the extraction team. Absolutely not, Dante, no. His voice was steel. You stay here where it's safe. Safe? I gestured to the shattered windows being repaired. They already attacked here. Nowhere is safe. I held his gaze. But I can save Elena's life if she's injured. Can any of your men do that in the field? The silence was my answer. She has a point, boss, Marco said quietly. Last night, she kept 3 men from bleeding out before we could get them to a hospital. Dante's jaw clenched. I could see the war in his eyes. The strategist who knew I was right versus the man who wanted to lock me away from danger. You stay in the vehicle until the building is secure, he said finally. And Marco doesn't leave your side. Understood? I nodded, relief flooding through me. 30 minutes later, I was in an SUV with Marco and 2 other men. A medical kit on my lap, wearing a bulletproof vest that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. You're either very brave or very crazy, Marco said as we drove through Brooklyn. Dante said the same thing. I checked the medical supplies for the 3rd time. Still haven't decided which. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and industrial. Through my earpiece, I heard Dante's team moving into position. On my mark, Dante's voice came through. 3.2.1. Breach. The night exploded with gunfire. Marco kept me pinned in the SUV, his massive body blocking the door. Through the windows I watched Dante's men storm the building, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. Building secure, someone reported after what felt like hours but was probably minutes. We have Elena. She's alive but hurt. Go, Marco said, finally letting me out. I ran toward the warehouse, kit in hand. Inside, the smell of gunpowder and blood hit me. Bodies on the floor, Valentino soldiers, I assumed. Dante stood over one, gun trained on the man's head. But I focused on Elena, crumpled against a wall, blood soaking through her shirt. Gianna knelt beside her, pressing a jacket to the wound. Move, I ordered, dropping to my knees. Stab wound to the abdomen, possibly nicked an artery based on the blood loss. Elena, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open. Maya? I've got you. I worked quickly, cutting away her shirt, assessing the damage. Bad, but not fatal if I worked fast. This is going to hurt. I packed the wound, applied pressure, started an IV line with hands that didn't shake despite the chaos around me. Behind me, I heard Dante interrogating the surviving Valentino soldier, his voice cold and deadly. Where's your boss? Gone. He was never here, just us. The man spat blood. He said to give you a message, though. What message? The therapist, the pretty one with the gentle hands. The man's eyes found me across the room. He's coming for her next. So she thinks she's one of you now. He's going to prove she's not. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Marco, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. Get Maya and Elena to the cars. Now. But I was already working, finishing Elena's field dressing. She needs a hospital. Real surgery. We have a private clinic. It's secure. Dante crossed to me, his hand on my shoulder. Can she make the drive? I checked her vitals. Weak but stable. If we go now. The ride to the clinic was tense. I kept pressure on Elena's wound while Gianna held her hand, whispering reassurances in Italian. Dante sat across from us, his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating something I couldn't hear over the rush of blood in my ears. The Valentino boss knew about me. Was targeting me specifically. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt a cold fury settling in my chest. These people had hurt Elena kind. Gentle Elena, who'd done nothing except work in Dante's house. Had shattered Luca's leg. Had tried to kill us all. When we reached the clinic, a surgeon was already waiting. As they wheeled Elena into surgery, she grabbed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. Rest now. You're safe. But as Dante pulled me into an empty room, his expression dark and dangerous, I realized safe was a relative term. The Valentinos know about you now, he said. They'll come after you to hurt me. Let them try. The words surprised us both. Dante's eyes widened. Maya! I'm not running, Dante. I'm not hiding. I stepped closer. They hurt your family. My family now. So what do we do about it? Something fierce and proud crossed his face. He pulled me against him, his kiss hard and claiming. We end this, he said against my lips. Permanently. 3 days later, Dante eliminated the Valentino family's leadership. He didn't tell me the details. Didn't need to. I saw it in the way his men relaxed, the tension bleeding from the mansion's walls. Heard it in the phone calls that stopped coming, the security teams scaling back to normal levels. The war was over. Elena recovered in the private clinic, her daughter at her bedside. When I visited, she squeezed my hand and called me family. The words settled into my chest like coming home. Luca walked without the cane. I watched from the doorway of the therapy room as he crossed the full length of the parallel bars, then kept going, his gait almost normal. When he reached me, he was grinning. Ready for a jog, Chun? Don't push it. But I was smiling too, pride swelling in my throat. Maybe next month. Can't. You'll be too busy with your new patients. He nodded toward the window, where construction crews worked on a building across the garden. Dante's clinic, for families like ours who can't go to hospitals. I stared at the steel frame rising from the ground. He didn't tell me. He wanted it to be a surprise. Your surprise? Luca's expression turned serious. He's building you a future here, Maya, with us. That night, I found Dante in his study, the same room where bullets had shattered our almost kiss 3 weeks ago. The windows had been replaced, the damage erased. But we were both different now. The clinic, I said from the doorway. He looked up from his laptop, his expression carefully neutral. You heard, Luca told me. I crossed to him, standing between his knees as he sat. Why didn't you? Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay. His hands settled on my waist. The 8 weeks are up tomorrow, Maya. You fulfilled your contract. The debt is cleared. My heart stuttered. And I'm offering you something different now. He reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a folder. Not the Seattle escape plant, something else. Partnership in the clinic. Salary, benefits, complete autonomy over medical decisions. You'd run it entirely. I opened the folder, scanning the legal documents. Everything was legitimate, professional, exactly what I'd need to practice medicine outside traditional hospitals. This is generous, I said carefully. It's selfish. Dante stood, his hands framing my face. I'm giving you a reason to stay that isn't about debt or threats or obligation. I'm giving you a career, purpose, something that's entirely yours. Why? Because I love you. The words came out rough, unpracticed, but utterly sincere. Because somewhere between you yelling at Luca and stitching up my men and refusing to run when any sane person would have, I fell completely in love with you. Tears burned my eyes. Dante, I know I'm not safe. I know this life isn't what you planned, but I'm asking anyway. His thumb brushed away the tear that escaped. Stay with me, not as my employee or my obligation, as my partner, my equal. I thought about the woman who'd gotten into the black Mercedes 8 weeks ago, desperate, drowning, alone. Then I thought about who I'd become, someone who saved lives in warehouses, who stood her ground during gunfights, who'd found family in the most unexpected place. I love you too, I whispered, even though you're dangerous, even though you scare me sometimes, even though this is completely insane. His smile transformed his face. Is that a yes? On one condition. I met his eyes steadily. The next time someone threatens us, you don't try to send me away. We face it together. Always. Always, he agreed, then kissed me with a tenderness that made my knees weak. 6 months later, the clinic opened with Luca cutting the ribbon, walking without even a trace of a limp. Gianna ran the administrative side while I handled medical operations. Elena's daughter became our first receptionist, and Dante's men knew they always had somewhere to go when bullets found their mark. I still wore the green dress to family dinners, though now I had a dozen others. Still slept in Dante's bed in the West Wing, his arms around me like a fortress. Still jumped at loud noises sometimes. Still struggled with the violence that lurked at the edges of our life. But I also laughed more than I had in years, worked on cases that mattered, saved lives that the system had abandoned. And when Dante slid a diamond ring onto my finger one evening in the garden where I'd first heard Luca laugh, I understood the truth. I'd come to this mansion wearing a blindfold, thinking I was trading my freedom for survival. Instead, I'd found something I didn't know I was searching for. A home, a family, a love worth fighting for. The debt had brought me here. But I stayed with my eyes wide open, and I'd never felt more free.